So Damian, I have a question for you. How does somebody stand out in today's job market? I mean, I see so many resumes. It's so hard to discern between them. Like, how do you get to the bottom of who's qualified for the role?
Well, Troy, we've been telling students to get their degrees, get their certs. And what we're finding is that may not be the right path to these jobs.
Yeah, I think degrees and certifications, they don't stop breaches. People do. So how does a person rise above the noise?
So wait, hang on. What am I supposed to do once I get my CISSP? Because it doesn't sound like that's going to get me a job anymore.
Well, that's what we're discussing on this week's episode, the DTF Cyber Podcast, episode 41. I'm Damian.
This is Troy.
And it's your boy, Fern. Let's go. Sometimes we make up stories here. Sometimes we don't. This story is 100% true. And I like to think of it as a tale of two cities, right? I'm sure you guys have read the book, right? Good old Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And that's exactly the story that a lot of people go through in the cyber world. Let me tell you specifically. Boot camps, cyber boot camps. Everyone buys them, but not everyone gets a job. And I happen to know two people that went to the same boot camp. One went, came out, found a job, is now working in a GRC role. Another one went, didn't get a job, is in a adjacent field that's not even technically technology, from what I understand. I believe it's customer service. Same course, same instructor, everything the same, literally in the room next to each other. Still talk to each other. One person got a job, the other one didn't. What's wild to me about that is that is consistent with more than these two people, because what I'm finding out in talking to people is that just because you do a boot camp doesn't mean you can get a job.
Well, just because you get a cyber degree also means you don't automatically get a job either. So I don't know what I guess this is what we'll talk about, right?
Yeah.
What is that path? And you're talking about two specific people that you know, Fern. I'll tell you, I've dealt with thousands of students, university college students over the past year. I've seen a lot of resumes. I've spoken to a lot of students. And how do you stand above? I think that's the question a lot of them have been asking.
Yeah.
It's not the
and here's
degree.
Another thing that,
right?
here's another thing, Damian, is with AI and everybody's job is, quote unquote, at risk. We're asking people to reskill themselves mid-flight. So if you're a SOC analyst, as an example, you have to now become an AI SOC analyst to help empower the AI to do your job more efficiently and be ahead of the curve as it relates to this new AI craze. So as companies are looking to cut headcount, which is ridiculous to me, as companies are looking to cut headcount, how do these same folks who have certifications and degrees in cybersecurity trying to get their foot in the door compete with people who have just lost their job to AI and are looking to get back into the industry? So now we have, again, I call the AI crunch, where you're having AI replace humans in some cases or empowering human in other cases. But also now you're saying, how do we work in a system with fewer jobs for everyone, including those trying to get their foot in the door here?
Yeah, and I don't know if there are necessarily fewer jobs yet. I think, we could say potentially a lot fewer jobs on the entry level. But overall, I'm not so sure that there's fewer jobs overall.
I think if you look at like Block as an example, 4,000 jobs, cut. Adobe, Microsoft, Google, you're hearing in the news thousands of jobs being cut. How can we say there's not fewer jobs? Because there is absolutely fewer.
I know, I won't dispute that. I think you're right. But I think what's happening is that those jobs that are being eliminated are being created on the top side with more AI development. So, having that experience is probably key here, because we're not going to lose all those jobs forever. I think it's just a repurpose of where some of those jobs are. Now, will they come back 100%? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so I know at least one of you's spun up agents before. We won't say how you're using them, but let me ask you this. Open question to both of you. How much would you have paid someone to do what the agent is doing for you?
Oh, I don't even think it would have gotten done. Okay. To be honest, right?
Okay, perfect example.
All the stuff that I'm building today for what I want the agents to do, I don't think it would ever have gotten done. It just made me get off my ass and do it, to be honest.
Okay. But so that's a really good example of that's essentially creating opportunity, like for you to leverage in a situation where you would have had to find someone that may or may not have even been able to do it. So in this example, you didn't necessarily like cut out a job. You just created opportunity for yourself, right? So that's kind of the way I look at it is if people are, if people are going on ChatGPT or Claude or what's the other one, Gemini, like we'll say the top three that most people can name, rattle off, and your main goal is to post something on LinkedIn about whatever, things you've learned in B2B sales or learning, what leadership is like and blah, 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 blah. Like you're using it wrong. Like if you are creating agents and you are doing things that essentially give you the ability to free up more of your time because you don't have to do these other things, I think that's where the value is at. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing when it comes to their resume is there's a lot of people that have certifications, they have stories that they can tell about what they've done, but they don't have the proof, right? They say proof is in the pudding. I like to think of it as the resume is one part, right? Everyone can read a recipe, but not everyone can cook. Perfect example, my wife never cooks. I won't tell you why, but you guys can come to your own, realization.
It sounds like Fern is a master chef. I mean, if Fern's an amazing chef, then yeah, hell no, I wouldn't cook.
Well, yeah, my kids tell me I should open a food truck, and maybe I will one day. But the thing is like, just because you have a recipe doesn't mean you can cook. Just because you have a certification doesn't mean you know what you're actually doing, right? And I think there's a distinction that a lot of people kind of conflate where they're like, oh, this person has these things. And then they get in the job and they don't know, they don't know one side from the other, right? It may be a nice way to say it.
Yeah, no, I think you're putting it in the right way. Like let's back out the AI stuff for a minute, right? Just going to school, because we know a lot of people are probably in school right now or just graduated.
Literally just graduating this week.
Now, are they able to find jobs just off of their degree? Hey, I got a degree, give me a job. The answer is no, right? And if that's your attitude and you're only looking for those jobs after you graduate, I think you're putting yourself at a deficit because you don't have the practical experience. Now, if you're lucky enough to get an opportunity, whether it's an internship or summer jobs that add to your experience, I think that's going to help.
Yeah.
But if you can't get those, it's not the end of the world because we just talked about my agent project, right? That I'm working on my own. A lot of people can probably do that for themselves.
Yeah. So they can do it by themselves, yeah.
Right? They can go and do their own projects, use AI to show how they're practically using it in maybe cybersecurity, maybe scanning for vulnerabilities. These are some easy things that you could do with AI today, whether you have a job or not. And so if I'm looking at a resume, it's not about whether they have the degree or they've gone to a boot camp. It's more along the lines of what projects have you done and what did you learn from those? And so if they actually get into an interview, I'm going to focus more on that experience versus, what school did you go to? What did you learn in school? I mean, maybe that's what did you learn in school? What did you like? That's common. But how have you applied that in independent projects? Because that shows initiative, right? So to me, that's more important.
Damian, one of the things we always say on this podcast is that AI is not coming for your job. The person who leans into and excels at AI is coming for your job. And I think that, just to be real, we want to, and so many of my peers want to dissuade the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of AI is coming for your job. But I can tell you that over the last 2 years, I've heard board of directors, leadership, CEOs, CFOs demanding the cutting of human capital with the efficiencies gained from automation and AI. So whether we like it or not, there's going to be some attrition of human jobs for automation and AI. So I think we should prepare ourselves. Don't stick your head in the sand and say that this is just not happening around us. It is happening. So you have to excel at exactly what Damian's talking about, setting up your home labs, testing with AI, building your own bots, doing fun things. You will learn through those processes that's also going to apply in your work life as well. Now let's talk about how we secure that. That's going to be a whole nother segment of the podcast, I hope. But for those who are either trying to get their foot in the door or trying to maintain and keep their job, or those who are trying to move up in the world, the best thing you can do right now is lean into AI, adopt it, build it, and understand it better than anybody around you. And that's what's going to make you successful.
I mean, you guys have been in the industry way longer than I have, right? So do you remember when, cloud first came out, right? I mean, obviously I was around for that, right? Both of you guys were around when virtualization came out, right? So there's we'll call these two different like points in time where an advancement in technology led to essentially productivity gains, right? You went from having, one essentially server running an application to one server running 50 applications. Now it could be hundreds of applications, right? And you went from a situation where you had one person managing the infrastructure to one managing the systems that were now responsible for multiple VMs, right? Same thing with cloud. Like you had people managing the network on-prem, but now you have them managing it in whatever hyperscaler they use, right? It's kind of as technology moves, we'll say moves forward, people find opportunities to support that technology, right? So while there's, we'll say some trimming on the one side, I don't think it's fair to say that there's no opportunity created. So it's almost like what gets cut off ends up.
And that's essentially what I'm saying, right? I think there will be a loss of jobs. We're seeing that now, but I think there will be a gain of jobs as people adjust to the new norm. I mean, we've seen this with the introduction of the internet, right? So if we go back to the 90s, the .com era, and where things started to really take off because everything's now connected.
Yeah. I disagree here because and I've heard this argument from a lot of people where we've gone through these incremental growths and changes in our industry, and this is no different. I disagree because we're talking about replacing human talent. There are many cases, and I'll use the AI SOC as an example, where you can have a Sean or a Claudia working in the AI SOC who are exactly as smart and doing the skills and things that a human used to do. In cloud, going from one server to 50 or 100, virtualization is not replacing humans. We are literally replacing humans here. Human thought, human decision-making, human, actions. This is beyond automation now. We're talking about intelligence, artificial intelligence, not just artificial automation. So I know people are trying to downplay the impact here. And I think we've been through many technological advances over the last 25 years. But this is different, folks. And I can't even tell you what happens when quantum and post-quantum encryption comes into play in a couple of years, where we go from an AI problem to an AI plus quantum problem.
Yeah, I think we're going down a different rabbit hole, which is totally fine. Look, a lot of the things that an AI SOC will be doing with AI, we're not doing today. Let's be honest, right? So adding AI to that is just going to augment it, make the SOC work faster, be able to address AI coming as an attack. And so I think that's mandatory. Now, will that lose jobs? It'll probably lose a little bit, but I don't think you're wiping it out completely. All the humans have to move up the stack to make sure that these agents are running optimally and that they're adapting to the attacks fast enough. So I don't think there's necessarily a net loss in jobs as we kind of adapt to this. I think it's going to definitely improve our defenses, but at the end of the day, if we don't, you're just going to get attacked, right? You've said this before, Troy. You don't adapt AI, what's going to happen to your organization? You're just going to be under attack from other AI, and you're going to be at a disadvantage. So that asymmetric, that Fern calls it, balance is going to be even greater.
Yeah, so for today, a human can manage one agent or two agents. And we start seeing that the agent, well, they're pretty good. And the measure of success between a human and an AI bot becomes closer and closer together to pair equal. And so as one human can now manage 4 bots, or one human can now manage 10 bots, those are incrementally jobs that humans used to do. So I'll give you an example, right? So we all love candles, but when electricity came along and we had the light bulb, it put a lot of candle makers out of business. I don't see a lot of candle makers going into the light bulb business, right? So I think that, yes, there will be dramatic changes in the workforce. Let's put it that way. You have to be adaptable and flexible and ready to change, lean into AI, find your spot, because the humans managing the AI are going to be fewer and fewer compared to the number of actual AI bots doing actual things humans used to do. So that exponential growth on the AI bot side and the reduction of humans oversight that's needed on the other side will force change. Now, yes, those jobs will pivot to somewhere else. Creativity is going to be first and foremost. Those who can think outside the box and instruct the agents appropriately and be creative about what they do are going to probably win out a lot of times. So, just be thinking about what's next for you, wherever you are, whatever seat you sit in, whether it's from the beginner's line or the nearly the finish line, like some of us. Think about how AI is going to change what you do and how it can empower you to be better at what you do.
Yeah, like how you call us old. Near the
Us. I'm talking for yourself, not me.
Frank Sinatra said it the best, and the curtain is closing. This is our swan song, but not yet. We got some years left, Damian.
You got, maybe another decade.
So let me ask you this then, because this is like not technically AI, right? Maybe some will bucket it this way, but like self-driving cars, right? Do you remember when you had to go out and you had to call a taxi and get a dispatcher and they would like send someone to you, right? Or like if you're in a certain city, you can kind of like wave your hand in the street, like, New York, whatever, like, hey, come get a taxi. Well, yeah, you can, right? But then Uber came along, right? Now all of a sudden you got your next door neighbor that's doing side work picking you up, right?
Yeah, but that concept actually helps us here, right? If you go outside the studio and put your hand up, is anyone going to pick you up? Oh, no. We were sitting there for days.
Yeah, but like, hey, probably die of starvation before anyone gets me. I got some time. I could last a little bit without eating. But so self-driving cars, right? So question here is, we can see where technology is going, right? At least if you either have a Tesla, or you've been in one, or you've been in the Waymos.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Waymos, yeah, it's great. Yeah, San Francisco
and the Zooks, awesome.
And
Never heard of the Zooks, but people have seen that cars are not driving themselves. So the question is like, do you really think that people that are doing Uber work today or driving taxis don't expect that at some point they won't have a job, right? And because they have to realize this and they have to think about it. So what are they doing to change how they can provide for their family? Are they just waiting for that, the guillotine to like fall on them? Or are they finding other things that they can do to supplement, right? And I think the answer most people would come to, realistically, a reasonable person, is they're not trying to drive a taxi for the rest of their life. They're trying to say, well, what else can I do with my skills? What else can I do to provide? They're not just sitting around waiting. And I think if you take that example and you drop it into security or even like technology, it's like people see where things are going. But are you going to be the Uber or taxi driver that's just waiting to lose your job? Or are you going to find a way to upskill, learn more things, become better at your craft, so that way when things start shifting, you're prepared? And I think most people would say, I would be dumb to expect that I can keep driving a taxi for the rest of my life. You probably could, but...
Yeah, but in this case, right, we're talking about maybe people who haven't really gained any experience yet, right? Yeah. So we do have, I think Troy makes a good point. If you're coming out thinking, I'm just going to do cybersecurity, and you got a cybersecurity degree, maybe even some certs, right now, if you don't have any AI experience, you're probably not going to stand out to anyone looking to hire. And how do you get that? Do you go to school and get an AI degree? Probably not, right? That's not realistic. What I'd like to see is that practical experience of how you're applying what you learned and maybe what you've learned on your own AI using all these models and all of these different tools. And what have you created during that time and what have you learned?
So that's there's a good story there that I have for you guys. I happen to know someone that works at Palo that's taking on a engineering manager role here locally, right? Moving to the Valley. I've known the guy for, we'll say 5-10 years, right? Really good guy. And, he's helped me with a lot of things in my career. And he reached out and said, hey, I'm looking for talent. Who do you know? I was like, oh, let me put you a couple people in front of you, right? And I know a handful of people that are probably very smart, definitely very smart, that would run circles around the average person in security, right? And I say, I got a couple people. Let me get their stuff, right? So I go to one person's LinkedIn, do some searching because I know this person's genius, right? I've seen it in person and I've seen it in a public setting, like conferences as an example, presentation wise, right? Like this person is very smart. He has his GitHub listed. So I click on that. I'm like, oh, let's see what's around here, right? So I started looking through, and it's just pages after pages after pages. And I got to one point and it said over 558,000 lines of code, over 500 submissions to projects. I forget how many commits were made. I don't even know if this is the right word, but I think it was said commits. And I'm like, okay, now we're like, tell me that this person doesn't know what they're doing, right? And I'll find you water that's not wet, right?
Yeah, but that's probably somebody who's been in the industry for quite a while to be able to amass that kind of project work.
Probably less than 8 years. But my point is not necessarily that he's been around long enough to get that. It's that there is a proof of record, right? There is a transaction history in the sense that can be defended, right? Like, hey, like I know what I'm doing. Here's the proof. So as people are in college, they essentially have 4 years or 4 to 6 years to develop their skills. And instead of just reading a book, taking a test, and then, partying or whatever happens, I never went to any parties, by the way, when I went to ASU. If they focus on doing certain things, they have a good window and a runway to build out their project list, to build out their CV, right? So maybe the question is, and maybe this is more on the education systems, is like, hey, what are you doing as an education like system to prepare these people? Not education wise, but kind of like, did you ever learn how to do your taxes when you were in high school? Probably not. You got sex ed, but you got driver's ed, you got all those things, but you never got taxes. Like, I think taxes is infinitely more important than sex ed, right? Maybe, I don't know. But like the point is like they prepare you for what's to come. And my question is, are these education systems preparing people and their students to be aware that like you have to start doing these projects on your own?
One thing, Fern, I would jump in there and to say, first of all, to your comment on Waymo, I can't wait for a day when I can just call a Waymo and it shows up to my doorstep. I love these self-driving cars in San Francisco. But number two is, the thing that's going to differentiate the next generation of cyber warriors is not going to be degrees and certifications, because they're going to become so plentiful that everybody has one, or not necessarily everybody, but they have different skill sets. The resumes all begin to look the same, especially to AI resume generators and then AI resume readers, right? So the way you differentiate yourself is soft skills. And I cannot explain enough how important it is to be the person who is reliable, shows up on time, is there when is needed. I'm not saying don't take time off. Of course, use your time as you can, but make sure that you're at work when you say you'll be there. You deliver things when you say you'll deliver them. You follow up when you say you'll follow up. Those traits you can't teach in a textbook, but the people that have those traits are the ones that you want to keep, retain, and promote. So I cannot express enough that I've talked to some people who think those things don't matter. They're smart enough that somebody's going to either hire them or promote them because of the things they know and can do. But what I'm thinking and what I'm saying is that the skills level is becoming a very level playing field. So you're not going to win on being the smartest engineer in the room, because AI is making everybody equally, that knowledge is lifting. So you've got to win on being a team player, showing up, being there for the company, being loyal, and doing all the things to be a good teammate, I think.
One question for you, Troy, though, is if somebody's coming out of school, how do they prove that soft skills? You haven't talked to them. They can't even get in front of you. They can't get you on the phone. How does somebody prove their soft skills to you?
That's for the first interview, I think that's where it really comes down to. So the question is, how do you get through the automated systems? And that's a great question. We'll talk about that in another segment. But once you get the opportunity, you have to seize it. Walk in there humble. Do not walk in with an ego. If you do, you'll probably be out the other door. It should be revolving for you, because ego has no place in our industry. Walk in with a humble, willing to learn attitude. Bring yourself to work, your authentic self, so that you can, bring value. We need more diversity in this industry. We all know that. And the only way to do that is to allow people to be their true selves, and people will embrace that. But as soon as you become egotistical, you have hubris, it's over for you.
Yeah, there's as one of my friends said this week, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
I tread that line all the time.
But I think with degrees nowadays, I don't know how important they are, because we don't know if you used AI through that entire degree. So did you really earn it, or did you just use AI to finish your projects?
Dude, I've met so many, Damian, you too, probably over the last 30 years, I've met so many book smart people that couldn't boil water. So sometimes the degree is not the fine line for who you want to hire, right? You have to discern who that person is sitting in the chair across from you that you're talking to.
Yeah, and I would even argue you got to make sure they're actually in front of you where you can like reach over and just like poke them, because I've heard so many stories. I heard a story last night about can I share? We'll just say that someone was interviewing for a job and there was a CISO interviewing a candidate, completely bogus candidate, like not who they said they were. They were.
Was it a deep fake or was it a real person?
It was a real person, but everything about them was a lie. So and this person called them out and said, hey, like, you know, essentially everything about you is perfect and it doesn't make any sense. And so they started asking questions on like, you know, where do you live? Right. Oh, I'm in New York was the answer. I was like, oh, where's your favorite place to go eat? Oh, I like steak was like the response. Like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I like steak too. But what's your favorite restaurant in New York City? You know, this place down the street. I'm like, okay, you said you had kids, right? I'm like, yeah. Where do they go to school? Right. Oh, they're around the corner. Right.
Yeah. They don't know anything.
Yeah. It's like they knew nothing about New York. It turns out they weren't even in the US, but they were, you know, remote trying to get a job here. And that's why I said, you know, like at least across from you. Right. They could be really smart, but like, I mean, they could be really smart from North Korea. Right.
Yeah. We did a whole episode on that. I remember that. And North Korea continues to try to get jobs in the US. And there was recently some arrests made. The Department of Justice charged some people out of North Carolina with setting up those laptop farms that allowed the North Korean workers to get into the U.S. and appear to be coming from here.
Yeah, hop through their
the VPN.
Yeah, their local makes it look like you come from the U.S.
Little VPN love, and like just ping, right? That's pretty wild to me. There was a lady here in Arizona too. Remember, she got busted like 8 months ago. They had I forget how, like 500 computers or something. It was ridiculous. I think she was at Phoenix. But the main thing is what I'm hearing is you have to have the soft skills. Soft skills are probably. I mean, I think soft skills are probably one of the most important things like in life in general. You ever talk to someone, you're just like, man, like you just need to go back to your dark corner and like never talk to a person again.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
They're really smart.
I hate people like that. I have a no assholes policy. You know that. I've said it 100 times on this podcast. And so here's a quick aside that I have an idea for all you entrepreneurs out there. How about an AI that can quickly move into an enterprise and tell them all their dependencies because you're afraid to fire the administrator because he's been there for 20 years and has all the enterprise secrets. Well, if you can get an AI to go back and map all the applications and dependencies, you can say, goodbye, Joe. I actually heard a story last weekend about an employee who filtered every single email in the company, even the CEO, and he would only release the ones he wanted to release. So he was managing the flow of information in this company. And it was a multi-$100 million construction firm. And, he was actually filtering out every single email and he would release them from quarantine if he chose to. And so he had the CEO by all the strings for having the knowledge that could shut them down if they fired him.
That takes too much work.
If you actually had an AI that could go in and map out all those dependencies on that guy, and they could actually fire him, you'd make $1 million or more, millions.
That seems like, I mean, like, did no one catch on? Like, hey, I sent you that email 20 minutes ago. Like, stuff done.
Oh, they knew. They knew he was doing it. That's the problem. They just knew they couldn't do anything about it.
So he had him in the vice grip. He had the pair in the vice grip. Okay.
There's nothing you can do about that. I mean, there are always solutions.
Always, but they were too afraid to do it. So
yeah, that's different.
He had them in a state of fear.
Let me ask you this though. So you talk about soft skills quite a bit. I don't disagree, but I have come across a lot of interns that are super introverted, but they're super smart, get the work done, actually create things that I would have never thought of creating. So how do you deal with that? I mean, it's you can't penalize somebody for being introverted or even potentially autistic, right? I think I don't want people to think, oh, you're autistic, you're never going to get this job because your soft skills suck. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, there's a whole different category, right? So being neurodivergent and being able to be different from your coworkers is a strength, not a failure. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about soft skills. Soft skills means don't be an asshole. I mean, no matter how introverted you are or how neurodivergent you are, you can show up on time to work. You can get your project done on time when you say you will. You can respond to an email and tell people that you'll get back to them, whatever it is. It doesn't take being extrovert to do your job well and be accountable and have responsibility and have integrity. Those things show up. And this is such a trust industry that we work in. People can see right through, fake people very quickly. It's kind of like, I know this different story, different topic, but you ever see the people who pretend to be Navy SEALs, and then a true Navy SEAL goes up to them and like almost beats them to half to death because they prove that they're faking it?
Like stolen valor? Is that
Stolen valor?
Right?
That's the one, exactly.
Yeah.
Stolen valor. Cybersecurity is very similar in the fact that we can spot fakes pretty quickly. If you're a true cybersecurity operator or a cybersecurity executive or cybersecurity person, you can see the people who are trying to fake their way through this and be inauthentic. So when I say soft skills, I don't mean anything to do with people who are neurodivergent or introverted at all. Those are some of our strongest players in this field. I'm talking about those people who have egos and who might be doing the stolen valor thing.
I'll flip it around the other way too, because I've seen it on the complete opposite spectrum where somebody's really good at speaking, so much so that they are just complete BS.
They snake oil their way into the outcome?
Or not just snake oil their way into the outcome, but be able to maintain that for years.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of bullshitters out there.
Yeah, no doubt. There are some good positions for them in this industry. Sales or, project management outreach, if you're good at talking to people and you're good at telling a story, right? As long as you're not inauthentic or untruthful, that's a different story. But for those people who can bullshit their way through and really tell a good story and get people going, they may not know everything about cybersecurity or all the technical bits and bytes, and that's okay. There's roles for you out there. Just don't ever lie about it and try to say that you're really great at cybersecurity when you're not. That's the worst thing you can do.
Or don't ever say you got a project under control when you're not really working on it.
Okay.
Exactly.
So that's an interesting point, because then my question is how do you filter for that, right? So maybe you ask people about some of their projects that they've done, and maybe specifically you ask, what was your favorite project? It was like, where was the one project where you failed miserably, and like, what did you learn from it? Very similar to, I've heard stories about how people, when they're hiring for a CISO role, they look for someone that's been through an incident or a breach, if you will, right? Not an incident. They've actually been on the other side. It will say a ransomware situation, right?
Yeah.
So they're let's say a long time ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, it was looked at negatively. Now it's almost like, well, we'll say like the Navy SEALs, like there's a certain level of valor to the fact that you've been on both sides, right? On the protecting and then kind of recovery side. So I think it's useful to ask people, like, don't tell me about your favorite things that you've done. Tell me about the things that you've done that went like extremely left and sideways to where it blew up in your face.
Yeah.
Right.
I think those are key, right? Because there's a lot of things that you intend for the path to be. And like we're talking about with your career right now, it always takes a turn because technology like AI pops up.
Yeah. And I don't think you can really focus on the wins, because if all you do is focus on the wins, what you end up getting is a list of like, or not a list, but you end up falling in the category of survivorship bias, right?
Exactly. So Fern, before I started, in my full-time CISO roles, I had a company in Vegas here, and our specialty was post-ransomware. This was 2015 through 2019, so when ransomware was just becoming famous, and we were doing the whole buy the Bitcoin, help restore services. So, coming in after a breach has you learn a lot of things about cybersecurity that a lot of people don't have access to because they've never been through it. I've also been through 2 major significant issues in other CISO roles in the past where I've actually dealt with it as the sitting CISO too. So I think that, as you said, we used to look at that as a negative thing to have gone through something like that. Now it's like the most invaluable part of my history that I've been able to go through massive, encryption events or data exfiltration events or things like that you weren't planned for. You went through your incident response plan and team worked, all the tabletop stuff you built up to that moment, you executed on with your attorneys and your privacy counsel and all the stuff through all your companies. I think that is such a, it's not fun to go through at the time, but it is one of the best things you can learn.
You're talking about getting prepared for it and then testing it out. I kind of like that too, where if you have enough time to build your program and then you get tested at some point, because your program is going to be tested at some point if you've been there long enough, right? What's it like, I think getting into a situation where you don't have support, and
like budget wise or like from leadership?
Both. right? So I think at our level, at the leadership level, I think that's probably like the worst scenario I can step into. An environment where I just don't have the support, don't have the budget, and you're just the sacrificial lamb, like you called it previous episodes, Troy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's so important to create that relationship with leadership from the beginning. And if you're in a role, and this has evolved after Joe Sullivan and Tim Brown and so on, this whole relationship with leadership has evolved. And so hopefully you've been able to leverage some of that news to create that relationship with your leadership, whether it's the CFO, general counsel, CEO, whatever it may be, your board, to understand, to get them on your side, to see things from your perspective, that you're not a cost center. You're not just there to spend their money. You're there to actually reduce risk. And it's so important to have that risk discussion of how much a breach would cost, how much a ransomware would cost, how much other cyber incident would cost you from a reputational, operational, regulatory, and legal standpoint. You become friends with them and you do these exercises together. And they're then invested, not financially, but morally and ethically and humanitarianly into your program. They become a part of it. And, it's funny to get a call from the CEO of a massive company and say, hey, I have this phishing email, Troy. What do you think about it? Is this real? I love to have that relationship, and building those bridges before you're in the fire together is crucial. Damian, there are some companies where CEOs just don't care about cybersecurity. I've ran into them, and thankfully, those are the kind of relationships you want to avoid.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, whoever wants to go into a job and just find out that they were the fall guy, right? Or fall woman, I don't know. I mean, that's probably a worse situation to even put yourself in, right? But I guess the other side of that too is like sometimes people take jobs because they have no choice. They have to do something, right? Maybe they've been out of work for so long that they kind of get forced to do something that they wouldn't otherwise. So it's, I guess there's two sides to that story. I guess maybe what I'm wondering then too is like, say you go to a place where you don't get the support. How is that any different than like being able to get in the first place? Because it's almost like the same outcome, right? You can't actually do.
It's probably worse, right? I would say not getting into a place like that is probably a blessing. Mm-hmm. Getting into a place like that and then getting stuck where you don't have the support and you're being set up. Well, not being set up, but
essentially like
potentially, taking the fall.
The meat shield, right? Which is a whole other problem too, right? I don't know. I just kind of feel like, and I don't mean to make this sound very broad and generic, but I told this to someone last night. I said, like, if I was going to be a CISO, I don't want to just work at a security vendor, because like culturally, like they understand security, right? And I said, like, the worst place you could probably be where you're getting paid, good money to be a CISO is probably construction, because I've run into people and I know people that work in these two different industries, right? Security versus construction, two separate worlds. Right? It's like the construction world is just like, just whatever, gets paperwork done, blah, blah, blah. We don't care. Mm-hmm. We're not going to invest any money. Security world is like, what are you doing? Like no, we don't do that here because of this. Like people in the security world understand the risk that they put themselves into. Whereas people in the construction world are like, can we just get our materials so we can build this house or whatever? It's like two different environments that look at security completely different. So it's like, even if you do get into security, like if you're a professional, like you'd almost rather be over here because you're not taking the burden of, or even like the potential risk of being held accountable for something that culturally they don't really value.
Mm-hmm. One of those places I've seen, Fern, is like in regulated industries, especially publicly traded companies, as an example, where the CISO has to check a box. The CEO has to check a box and say, we hired somebody in this role, and they give you the title, but they don't give you anything else. They don't give you the pay that you need. They don't give you the budget that you need to buy stuff. They don't give you the stuff that you need to actually secure the business. They just want to check a box for compliance purposes. That's probably one of the places I've seen, Damian, the most disjointed or disconnected security programs.
And they won't even give you
just
insurance.
Wanted you there. Yeah, exactly.
They won't even cover your insurance, so now you're on the hook.
Exactly. And here's another problem, Damian, that I've seen recently too, is with all of the new regulations and the challenges that CISOs face. A lot of CISOs are choosing to leave the seat, and they're going into either field CISO work or going to venture capital or doing consulting on their own, etc. So now what's happening is that you've got these deputy CISOs who may or may not be ready, who think they're ready or may not be ready or whatever, but they want the title. So they take the risk without thinking about it. So I really feel worse for the next generation of CISOs because these deputy CISOs are so hungry to get the title and the recognition that they may take on more personal risk than they would otherwise.
Yeah. Well, so I got a crazy story. So I'm going to ask you guys, right? This is not related to anywhere you work or anywhere that you have worked. This is a personal opinion question for you. How do you guys look at pen test? Like, not like read them, like read the out, but like, how do you, okay, maybe a better way. Do you guys see pen test as commodity or strategic?
I think it depends.
Okay.
So I think they are definitely strategic. Are they commodity? I think that's where it depends. Strategically, you have to understand where your weaknesses are. And so a lot of organizations will have an internal red team. And then for compliance, you'll have an external team that is testing without your blue team's knowledge at all. So hopefully that's the way it's set up, where you're actively doing your own penetration testing internally, but then also having a third party cover it for you so that you have that done for insurance or compliance. There's different regulations that you might have to do it for. So it just depends on your business.
Yeah. Also, I've seen two flavors of this, Fern. One is you're doing a pen test because you want to know about your issues. And the other is you're doing a pen test because you want to check a box. So go back to check a box, your compliance. You know, certain requirements like PCI require you to do pen testing on a cadence. If you're just doing it to check a box, you're not really paying attention to the findings or actually, you know, focusing on the right areas, let's say, then that's the wrong reasons to do a pen test and it's really worthless. But the CISOs who lean into this, who can do now what Gartner calls continuous testing, but continuous pen testing, and you're actually looking for your external attack surface and what are the things that hackers can use to get into your environment. That's much different. And then internal pen testing, running those continuously, looking for real vulnerabilities and prioritizing the fixes, I think is absolutely critical as it comes to Mythos and some of the 0 days that we're going to be facing soon.
Yeah, it's not a simple. You can't cover everything by just saying pen testing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different flavors, right?
You're going to have to be doing external scans and attack surface monitoring. So there's things that are happening within that realm. And then like Troy pointed out, very good part where the continuous testing, where it's not just a one-time pen test.
Yeah. So, okay. So the reason I asked you guys is because you guys are both in security, right? Security professionals. This is how you view it, right? I was talking to someone probably like a week ago, and he was telling me about pen tests, and I just got to get these things done, right? And I asked the question, is like, have you ever had a good pen test, right? Like, did you feel like you got your money's worth? And he's like, no, we just do these things because we have to. Like, I don't even give a shit. Like, I just need the paperwork to say that I did it, and I'm good. Like
compliance, check a box.
Mm-hmm.
So someone in security, right? My thought there was like, culturally, that company sees it differently than how you guys would see it, right? So essentially same test potentially, like same idea behind why they do it, but different perspectives, right? Mm-hmm. Both from people in security. So my whole idea there is just like, just because someone is in a role doesn't mean that they look at things the same way, right? And when you don't look at things the same way, you obviously have like your diversity in thought, but you also have like these hiccups that can come up, like these roadblocks, because essentially if you look at it one way when there's a better way of looking at things, right, you could essentially miss out on either opportunity or sign yourself up for more risk. So I guess where I was going with that is, when you're looking to hire someone, right, there's a lot of people that go for, we'll call them yes people. Yes man, I think is the official like term that is coined for that. And then there's people that look for like diversity in thought, right? They don't want to fall into this group think, right? So all that long story, just to make it longer and say, my thought now is, when people are looking to apply for these roles, or they're looking to interview, or they're looking to find their next role, I think it's important for people to bring multiple perspectives and multiple sides to the same situation, right? Because it shows that you understand there's more than one outcome or more than one story to tell, like two sides to the story. But you also kind of walk into a room where you may have someone that is interviewing you that only has one perspective. And by showing them that you could essentially help them avoid a landmine, teach them something they didn't realize, you kind of set yourself apart. So maybe this is part of like the soft skill part where you can speak more fluently about the technology. But if you can bring multiple perspectives and multiple sides of reasoning for the same situation, you kind of set yourself apart, because now it's like, oh, it wasn't, you just didn't agree with me. You brought something up that I hadn't thought about, and I value that because that could essentially help me, right? Does that ever like run across your guys' mind? Like if you're interviewing someone and they give you a completely different perspective that, you know, essentially becomes educational, like doesn't that set someone apart?
I think it depends on how non-traditional their answer is, because it could be so non-traditional that it's completely absurd. But not saying that that is wrong, because if you, let's say, before Tesla was even out and somebody said, I have this idea to make self-driving cars, battery operated, a lot of people probably would have said that's absurd, right?
Water operated.
Well, that's hydrogen, right? The hydrogen power kind of fell apart. But, you know, so I wouldn't necessarily dismiss it if there's good thought process behind it. But if there's something as absurd, and I'm not going to
name names.
I have one for you, Damian, though. I know.
Let me finish this thought, Troy. So, like, if somebody came in and said the Earth is flat, what would you say? Like, would you ask them to explain it, prove it? I don't know.
Here we go, Joe Rogan. That's a great opener.
Have you been in space before? Like have you been in space? How do you know?
No, here's the thing, though. I think, Damian, that might explain a little bit better for our industry is that I know people, and you know, my wife would attest to this. We know a guy who, like, you cannot convince him that everything open source is not the better way to do something. Replace Microsoft with open source. Replace your firewalls with open source. Replace your endpoint detection and response with open source. And, you know, everything this engineer wanted to tell us was like how we could do things better with open source technology. Now, there are some open source kits that I like and I use myself. But at a Fortune 500, when you need to have an MSA with a vendor and constant technological updates and innovation, open source has no place in that. So this guy was so out there in left field, Fern. I think that kind of struck me as I would never promote him, because everything he's going to want to do from a project perspective is going to be, you know, jaded that direction. And on top of that, if I gave him a direction to go implement a major platform, he may, you know, sabotage me on that as well.
So here, I'll say, right, I don't disagree with that notion that you can do a lot of things open source. I think what the challenge that we have is that who is going to support that if you don't have the talent base? And how are you going to make sure it's secure in the long run? We are faced with the same problem with AI developed code, right? So now if you're asking your teams to go and code their own stuff using AI, spin up their own agents using AI, I think we're at a pivot point where we're saying, how do I support that in the long term? It's very similar to that open source conversation, Troy.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I know people that I've run across in my career that are like, oh yeah, we just open source. Like you can do this for free, or you can spend $100,000. So I would just do it for free.
Well, I mean, you could build your own app. You can build your own agents. That's easy. The question is, in the long run, how do you support that?
I don't think you can. I think what everything boils down to is money versus time situation. You either spend the money and you buy someone else's time that they've taken to develop it, or you take the time to develop it and you save the money. But like there's no world where you can save all the money and save all the time.
I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast, but I know we've had this conversation. It's like, you know, making beer. I think I've told you I've made beer in my kitchen, and it's fun, but I was never consistent at it. It took more time and was probably more expensive than me driving to the store and picking up a 6-pack.
Oh, for sure. It's more fun. It's an experience, but like it's not sustainable, right? And I think that's the issue is
doesn't scale. It's not consistent. And so do I still make beer to this day? No.
No.
And here's another thing too, Fern, that I was thinking is this isn't a discussion about open source versus proprietary. I mean, I love open source projects, I do. But at a Fortune 500 level, your attorneys, most of your privacy and legal attorneys are not going to sign off on you using open source technology because there's no one to hold accountable or liable for privacy concerns and other legal liability questions. So I think that was a big challenge for me in the Fortune 500. My point was to yours, Damian, was the person who won't get on board with what the company's doing and is always the constant saboteur and resistor. Those are the ones that stand out in my mind as the ones you don't want to support or promote.
Yeah. And then, so just to add on to Damian's point too, is I was on a phone call today talking with someone about secrets and how their developers don't actually use some of the tools that they have, in front of like a UI, right? They just avoid it, right? So as they're doing their development, they're just secrets scattered everywhere in the code, right? And there's nothing you can do about it because like once you terminate this person for whatever reason, it like the situation persists within the code. Like it's not.
Well, I mean that's easy. That's an easy fix. You can use different tools to scan your code, look for secrets. But that's funny that you say that because when I was coding my agents this week, the AI was automatically hard coding the keys. I'm like, wait, you can't do that. And so I had to, luckily, I knew to look out for those things, but most people don't.
Well, my point is like if you're using a tool and you don't understand the security foundation, the foundational security aspects of writing code, right? You could rely on a tool to do what it is doing, and you put yourself in a completely worse situation.
I think in the future, right? You just tell the AI to make sure you follow secure coding standards, and then feed it the standards, and should be good.
Yeah, how many people that are vibe coding right now even know a security or can't even spell security, right? That's probably interesting percentage, but okay. Well, I just thought it was interesting how, even like at the developer level, you can kind of run into these issues. And when you mentioned, AI doing your code, things can get a little bit tricky. So let me ask you this then. We're going to call this the final verdict, right? And maybe this is where people can really stand out, is pick a tool, break it, rebuild it, document it, and have that story for anyone that is at any point in their career, right? Because one, it shows interest, right, at the early stages, but it also in the later stages, like with Troy, with his swan song happening, right? It shows that there is curiosity and this learning, right? Like I think anyone can do these things, except for salespeople. We can't expect them to code, right? Or do things like. Do you think that maybe something like for someone listening that's in any part of their career, maybe that's an example, but like. What would you say people can do moving forward so that at least they have one nugget on their resume that's not a CISSP, it's not something that sounds like the resume before. I want to say something that is the cherry on top that's not just extra vanilla into the sundae. Like I want the cherry with the chocolate fudge with the bananas, and I don't want vanilla. Like how do we distinguish and like make someone stand out?
I think for me, I want to see some practical project work. It doesn't have to be an employer. It could be your personal project. But like you said, Fern, if you're breaking apart something, you're finding vulnerabilities and breaking it, rebuilding it, I think that's a good project, type of work. But there's other things you can be building. I think with AI today, it makes it a lot easier for you to go and stand up a project. Yeah. And list that, or maybe even a link to a GitHub repo. Maybe you have a website with your portfolio of things that you've built. Or even, I see a lot of students do today is spin up a YouTube channel. Everyone thinks they want to be an influencer, but not necessarily be an influencer. Just talk about what you're learning or some of the cybersecurity projects you're working on. I think that goes a long way because it gives an idea of who you are as a person, maybe some of that soft skill that Troy's talking about. And then also you get a first impression without having to be in an interview. You get to control how you come across.
Yeah. Maybe not influencer. I like to think of it as a person of influence versus an influencer. Right? There's a slight distinction there. DTF Podcast are people of influence. But I do like the idea of even starting a YouTube. There's someone that I know that just is now doing like side work for EVs. He's super passionate about EVs, and he's owned like 5 or 6 in his life. And you talk to the guy, he's passionate about cars, and he actually enjoys helping people pick their next car to purchase that's electric, right? And he made this announcement on LinkedIn. I said, hey man, you should really do like a YouTube station, like a YouTube channel. Because have you guys ever, like Friday night, Saturday night, it's like 11 o'clock and you look over, kids are asleep, and you're just on your phone, you're like watching a video of someone chop wood. And it's just like, what am I doing here? Like, I tend to find myself watching a lot of like woodworking videos, custom design type stuff, or just like video related like equipment stuff. And it's like, it's all educational. And I'm just like, I'm watching that versus something on Netflix, because it's like, I get to learn. And I would bet that there's someone out there that is 5 years before where you're at in your role today, not you guys, but everyone in general. There is someone out there that is in your shoes that you were in 5 years ago that wishes that they knew what you know today. But the problem is that because you've been through that, you just assume that everyone knows these things, and that assumption leads to you not sharing what you actually have learned in your career. And by just simply looking at it from the lens of, if I would reverse and go back, and what would I want to know about that I know today 5 years ago? And if everyone does that to some extent, there will be someone out there that is exactly in that position that wants to know that you, as a listener, or like both of you, right, wishes that they had someone tell them.
Well, the unfortunate part is 5 years ago, we didn't know AI.
I mean, you could argue, some people are like, oh, it's been around since the 70s. Like, yeah, man, whatever. Like, that's we've been doing AI for 40 years. Like, okay, buddy, shut up. Like, you've been doing something. I don't know if you've been doing what they're doing now. But I think that the point still holds true, right? I think at a very generic assumption is that there is something that you know that someone wishes they knew, but you don't see it that way. Right. Mm-hmm. And by getting out there and sharing what you know, whether it's on LinkedIn or YouTube, a podcast, right? There's people that listen to this. There's thousands of people that listen. I don't even know who they are. Right.
Mm-hmm. But thank you for listening, by the way.
Yeah. I don't even know why they listen. Right. Okay. But I'll tell you why they listen. This is not for me. They listen because they have you guys to kind of give them information, and they like my jokes. Right. But if we didn't look at it like that and say, oh, we don't have anything to teach anyone or to share, and we never started, there's like 5,000 people that listen, right? And easily a few hundred every episode on audio, right? So it's like, at no point do we ever say, hey, like, we shouldn't do it because no one's going to care. We say, we're just going to do it anyways, see what happens. And then a year later, 41 episodes.
So, I mean, the crazy part is we have this conversation anyways. So if you guys ever wondered what it's like when the three of us get together, this is it. I mean, it doesn't even, nothing's changed.
Yeah, there's probably a few more curse words coming from me, at least. But I think that's the nice part, is just like, to your point, Damian, like, teach, like, because what they say, the people that can't do teach.
What
right?
are you saying, we can't do anymore?
No, is that the phrase? No, what is it? What is the phrase?
That is the phrase.
People that can't do teach?
Yeah, that's like down. So I disagree with that, because there are a lot of teachers who have a full-time job. I met one actually this week, who has to teach on the side, but it's not because he needs extra money. It's because he enjoys it. And that's how I started teaching.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the phrase refers to grifters. There are a lot of grifters that on LinkedIn, I can point that. If anyone wants to know, I'll point you towards a grifter. There's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing in life, and they're just like slopping AI on something and saying, hey, come buy this for $5,000 or $10,000 and we'll change your life. We'll give you the recipe to
stay away from those garbage online classes.
So that's when I say those that can't do teach, is like the we'll say grifters. Grifters are different. I'm not saying
that's not real teaching though. I would call that building course content without actually teaching.
Okay. So yeah, so maybe that's a better way. So not teachers, professors, obviously, right? But I think for you guys, it's like maybe if you're not selling a product, maybe that's the delineation between if you're selling a service or a product, like really, because if you can make $1 million selling stuff on Amazon, why wouldn't you be doing it? Why are you charging me $500, right? And we're not selling anything here, so that's the difference. We're not selling a course, so we're not grifters. We do awesome events. We have one coming up tonight in Vegas. We have another one coming up tomorrow in Phoenix.
Yeah, just like community events, right? So we'll try to get more of the community out. I think those are great, right? We always talk about how important it is to network and build relationships, because that's the other way to get a job.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now. This is not, when this episode comes out, it will not be a secret. I am shaking the hand of the CEO of Horizon 3 today. When people are listening, we're gonna be hanging out with Snehal. You know how that wouldn't have never happened, or how that would have never happened if I stayed at home and did nothing. We got the podcast. We're getting out there. We're talking to people.
By the way, that's not a sponsored podcast, by the way. You're just trying to name drop.
Yeah, I was just name dropping. I'm just letting you guys know what's going on in my world. Okay, well, enough name dropping from my side. I guess maybe then the question then is for you, Troy, is nothing specific. So we'll say for someone in your role, you get rid of cybersecurity professional. What are you going to put in the place of that, right? How would you differentiate yourself at your level? Because we talked about entry level.
So
right?
when you say get rid of cybersecurity professional, what do you mean? Like if I had to start over or move somewhere else?
No, I think what Fern's saying is, if there's people put the generic persona that they're trying to get out there, and they'll say, I'm a passionate cybersecurity professional.
I love this work.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this. And yeah, I don't know if that really necessarily stands out. I mean, it definitely doesn't stand out to me. You can put that there, shows that you're interested in cybersecurity. But honestly, I'd want to see more context to that. Like, are you really interested in building out agentic AI agents to defend the next wave of attacks from AI, right? Something to that effect. And then maybe you have a project that kind of backs that up, or leveraging AI to look for vulnerabilities and the continuous monitoring of applications. I think there's a lot more deeper things you can put in versus just saying, I'm passionate about cybersecurity, because that's so broad.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think you want to see some of their skills, abilities, what they're building. I think building is crucial, because you start seeing sparks of creativity that you can't find elsewhere. That's where they'll stand out.
I have a closing thought. You guys ready for it? This is I don't even know what we call it. We'll just call it my final thought. So everything that we talked about today, entry level, mid-career, senior, ways to stick out, things that you can do, GitHub, projects, coding, like all these different things that you could do, right? And I think at the end of the day, when you think about it as there's all these facets that people have access to, the problem isn't that their resume is boring. The problem is they're just not sharing what they know. And when you don't share what you know, people aren't aware of what you're capable of. And if they're not aware of what you're capable of, you don't find yourself in situations to shake hands of CEOs, right? So with that, what I will say is, it's not that your resume sucks. It's more so you haven't done enough to put yourself out there to make sure people know how amazing you are and all the cool things that you can do. So start documenting, start having stories, start putting that on your resume, and watch things change.
Yeah. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? You got to get away from, I'm just a piece of paper, to, hey, I'm a person.
Boom. Mic drop. We'll see you next week.
Forget the parchment, forget the seal. You're looking for a job, but you don't look real. Same boot Bootcamp, same desk, same line. One gets the check, the other's out of time. It's a tale of two paths, tell me where you stand. Are you pushing keys or just a hire in hand? Don't be vanilla, that paper's thin. The AI's knocking, let the builder in. You're more than a piece of paper, yeah. More than a line on a resume, yeah. Build it, break it, show me what you do. Build it, break it, show me what you do. The AI's the mirror, I'm looking at you. Don't be a ghost in the corporate machine. Be the sharpest thing that the boss has ever seen. Create your own agent, scan for the holes. Not just another diploma, chasing corporate goals. Not just another diploma, chasing corporate goals. If you vibe coding secrets with AI today. So open source or proprietary, I don't give a damn. Just show me the portfolio of the person that I am. If you can't do, then go ahead and teach. But don't sell the snake oil that's out of your reach. Get on the get hard, make your own